So we've done a couple quests, killed some wolves, killed some more kobolds, we've nearly got a full inventory and a couple quests to turn in. Doing all of that, we've hit level 4. Today we're going to talk about all the ways that our character can become stronger. Let's find out what this entails. First things first, we're going to clear out the inventory. We talked to this vendor, we have all these items we don't need, so we'll get them sold, but I'm going to hold on to a couple here. You're also lucky enough to get these 2 6-slot backpacks, so we'll equip those. Alright, first we got to turn in this quest to Marshall McBride. We get to choose a reward, and I'm going to go with the boots because they give us a lot of armor. So today let's talk about armor or gear first. Opening up that handy dandy character sheet, we see lots of slots. Starting from the top left and going down, we have head, neck, shoulder, back, chest, shirt and tabard, which are for cosmetic purposes only, and bracers. On the right side, starting from the top, we have gloves, belt, pants, boots, rings 1 and 2, and trinkets 1 and 2. And in the very middle, we see I have a sword and a shield, which are my main hand and offhand respectively, and then my range slot with another tiny slot right next to it for ammo. That's right, if you have a ranged weapon, you also need to restock yourself with ammo from time to time. Armor has different types as well. Cloth, leather, mail, and plate, ranked from least to most exclusive, so that means if you can wear leather, you can also wear cloth, but not plate or mail. We are a warrior, so currently we can wear mail and everything below. Now jewelry gear pieces, meaning necklaces, rings, and trinkets, do not have armor types, and neither does your cloak or cosmetic shirt and tabard, but everything else does. So as you get higher level, you'll start to find more powerful and diverse gear that gives you more than just a bit of armor. They can include extra stats, passive, or active abilities. Now those stats might seem intuitive, and you might say, well, we're a warrior, therefore we want strength because it'll make us do more damage, and more stamina because it'll give us more health. Well, you're not necessarily wrong, but that's not all you want, and that's not necessarily why you want them. So let's break down how stats work, because it's not as simple as you might think. Starting with strength. Strength does increase your melee damage. Warriors, paladins, druids, and shamans get 2 attack power per 1 point of strength. All other classes get 1 attack power per 1 strength. Now make no mistake, 1 attack power does not equal 1 damage. For every 14 points of attack power, you get 1 extra point of damage per attack. On top of that, strength also increases your block value. For classes that use shields, that means warriors, paladins, and shamans, 2 strength equals 1 block. That means whenever you block with your shield, you totally negate 1 point of damage. Add this to the block value of your shield, and you get how much damage you will negate whenever you block. Agility does a lot of small things. 1 point of agility will give you 2 armor, 2 ranged attack power for hunters, rogues, and warriors, 1 melee attack power for hunters, rogues, and catform druids. It will increase the chance of critical striking with physical attacks and abilities, and it increases your chance to dodge. The increase to crit and dodge depends on your level and your class, but generally for non-hunter and non-rogue classes at level 60, it's about 20 agility to 1% crit and dodge. Intellect increases your maximum mana by 15 per 1 point. It also increases the rate at which you learn weapon skills. I don't know if we know the exact math, but it's not really that big of a deal. It also increases your chance to critically strike with spells. Like with agility, intellect spell crit increases depending upon your level and class, but at level 60, basically every mana using class needs about 60 intellect for 1%. Stamina increases your max health by 10 for every 1 point. Spirit increases your health and mana regeneration. Health regen only happens out of combat. Mana regeneration can happen during combat, but it is subject to what we call the 5-second rule, which is not necessary to discuss right now. Lastly, we have armor, which reduces the damage you take from physical-based attacks, just as it might in any RPG. There's a damage absorption formula that exists, and I can explain it, but again, it's not so necessary. So looking at these stats, you'll notice that it seems kind of convoluted and maybe even a little confusing. 20 agility per 1% of crit, you'll never get consistent critical hits, and intellect doesn't give any added spell damage. How do you get stronger spells? Well, would it help if I told you that there are even more secondary stats and effects that show up on gear to do just that?
I don't know. You must be joking.
No way. Fantastic!
Oh, okay, well hey, listen, let's not get into those today. Here's a list of all the extra attributes that you can have in your gear, and I'll just explain how they work in depth in a supplemental video. let's just get back on topic. There are 3 more things to mention about gear, and I promise they are simple. First is durability. This means that over a long period of time as you play and engage in combat, your gear will wither away, and eventually its durability reaches 0, at which point you will no longer yield any stats from that piece of gear. If it isn't 0, you still get all the stats though. Whenever you die with an item equipped, it loses a significant amount of durability. To fix this, simply go to a vendor, usually someone who sells weapons or armor, and click the repair button. Use them only to repair. I would suggest never ever buying your gear from there, unless they have something with better than common rarity, which leads me to my next point, rarity. All items have a rarity, and they're broken down like this: junk, common, uncommon, rare, epic, and legendary. Junk stuff has one purpose, and it's to be sold. They're solid for making a reliable amount of money. Common items are either pieces of gear with no special stats on them, or they are items with a purpose, either for crafting or for a quest. Uncommon gear means that they have 1 or 2 added primary stats. Uncommon items are usually for crafting pretty decent gear or items, and these sometimes drop from mobs in the open world, a little more often from mobs in dungeons, and quite reliably from dungeon bosses and quests. Rare means that they have anywhere from 2 to 4 extra primary stat increases, and often have a special effect or attribute. There are some, but few, rare items used in crafting, and they are generally quite rare and expensive, but yield for some great crafted things. These are very rarely dropped in the open world, but are quite reliably obtained from dungeon bosses and from long quests. Epic gear usually has some of the best stats in the game. If you get a piece of epic gear while leveling, you will typically have that with you until you hit 60, the level cap. It almost never drops in the open world, and can only reliably be found in endgame dungeons and in raids and some very long quest chains. Finally, we have legendary items. Let me just tell you how rare these items are. By the end of Vanilla WoW in patch 1.12, there were 3 items in the game with this quality. 3. Thunder Fury, Sulfurous, and a Tiche.
Hey, did somebody say Thunder Fury?
These items require lots of raid runs, and then after getting lucky enough to get all the required pieces, a long series of quests, and then a very, very expensive crafting recipe. Typically, you will maybe see 10 people on your server with these weapons, if that. The last thing about gear is the idea of being soulbound. If an item is soulbound to you, it means that you cannot trade that item with other players, but you can still sell it to a vendor. Items can either be bind on pickup, meaning as soon as you receive this item, it becomes bound to you, or bind on equip, meaning that the item becomes soulbound when you equip it, but not simply by receiving it, so it can still be traded. So I have a hunch that some people are going to find the stats in Classic WoW unnecessarily complex, and I want to argue against that. Unlike in retail WoW, there's no item level system, so it's up to you to decide what gear is going to be good for you and your specific build or strategy. And that within itself is super fun to me. You look at 2 glove items and think, damn, this one has nice strength and stamina. Wait, this one gives me 4 straight up fire damage. And yeah, it has some fire resistance, which I probably won't use, but the armor's about the same. But that stamina looks really nice. But fire! Also, another great design choice is that you're rewarded for not either just stacking one primary stat, or by getting a myriad of stats and just having a bunch of them. Planning is what is key here. You don't want all the stats, but you do want the ones that are good for what you want to do. Does this paladin want more intellect to boost his mana, or does he need more strength to do more damage? Paladins, for example, don't just get the paladin gear all the time. They might get the gear that's usually for warriors if they want to be a retribution or protection paladins. They need that strength, If they want to heal, they might even go wear a freaking dress like the priests, man. The mage wants good spell power gear, but that headpiece over there is usually for warlocks, and it's not that bad for now. Hey, that weapon looks pretty good, and oh yeah. Oh, the hunter rolled on it. Of course. Anyways, I hope this helped some of you understand gearing for the most part. As for stats, I promise that's more than enough to get you started playing and deciding for yourself what gear is good for you. That said, I will be making a supplemental video, sort of disconnected to this beginner's guide series. The information you'll see in that video about stats will be much more thorough, and I'd bet that tons of private server players don't even know how some of these stats work. It's good to see our old warrior is all geared up, but, he's level 4, and that hotbar is looking kind of barren. So next time, we'll cover spells and trainers and talent trees. If you want to see me cover something in a later video, or you want to discuss or argue for or against certain game design features that I talk about in these videos, go for it. I'd love to hear from you guys. But for now, as always, stick around.